Welcome back to the Let's Be Friends podcast. Today we are blessed to have Father Seraphim Holland returning for a second time. Father Seraphim is the head priest at St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in McKinney, Texas. You may know Father Seraphim Holland from his YouTube channel, Orthodox Net, or from his social media accounts where he shares helpful, candid, and often funny information about being an Orthodox Christian. Welcome back to the show, Father Seraphim.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for coming back on here.
I'm glad to come.
We did an episode, I think a couple months ago, and it was called "What is Salvation? Stormtrooping Evangelism versus Orthodox Christianity." And it was we talked about the video that went viral where a woman named Sarah, who is in my prayers now, and I hope many others, came up to you when you were in Greece. And she acted like she was interested in learning some things and asking you some questions, but really she kind of had an alternative agenda to evangelize to you. Stormtroop.
I guess, yeah. God bless her. Actually, it's still, the fallout of that is still happening because the comments I get are right around that same kind of genre and everything. And it's sort of a brainwashing, you know?
Oh, yeah.
To believe in the Bible, but not the first 1,500 years of Christianity.
Right. I know. It really is.
All of that's gone. All of it's trashed.
Yeah.
100%.
No, it is like a brainwashing.
It is, but you know, some people come around. There are people who have told me that they've started coming to church because of that video or my videos. Just as there are people who sometimes you say this name and people start to get a seizure. Charlie Kirk started looking into Orthodox Christianity before he was killed, and people have come to church because of him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so God works out whatever he wishes to do. God does.
I was working on a video for this channel where I just kind of explained why I became an Orthodox Christian, because I became a Christian 5 years ago. I became Orthodox. I became a catechumen almost 2 years ago. But I was looking back on when I first became a believer in Jesus, and I had this video I recorded, and I say, I'm just reading the Bible now for the first time. It's blowing my mind. But the biggest thing that I've discovered is I think there's a spell around Christianity that made some of us not even believe Jesus had ever lived. So it is like a brain, because I didn't even believe Jesus had ever lived. I didn't think he was real. And so I do think there is, like, call it brainwashing or mind programming, whatever, a spell. There is something that that keeps people from the truth. Someone like me. You know, before.
There very well could be. That very well could be.
Yeah, and I think it really is just like the state of the world, you know, the world that we live in, the culture and everything. But so in this episode, I would love to talk to you about a couple things. One is I want to talk about loss, because a lot of people go through loss. You went through a big loss in 2017. Your son Daniel passed away. And I would like to talk about that and what kind of came, like how you moved through that experience, what has come out of that, because you created something called Daniel's List, which is about praying for Daniel or praying for others because of that, and talk about like what happens after we die and the importance of the prayers of the dead. And then also at the end, the second half of the episode, I'd like to shift into talking about fasting, because we have Great Lent starting coming up, and just talk about why we fast and how to properly fast. But first, I'd like to talk about Daniel, if you'd like to start.
All right. Well, he died June 11th, 2017, and I will say, shockingly, until I explain it, didn't bother me a bit the day he died. Not a bit, because I didn't know. It was Saturday night for us, the eve of the Sunday of All Saints. The Sunday after Pascha, and Sunday after Pentecost, excuse me. And he had said something on Facebook saying it's 6 o'clock in the morning in Berlin and that's time to go swimming. And he was going to jump in the Spree River and swim across, you know, as kind of a prank kind of thing. And then they were going to go to Czechoslovakia, and then he was going to go to, I think, Finland. I'm not sure if it's Finland, maybe Denmark, and do his studies, because this is part of his college program. And I thought, okay, he's going to go swimming, 6 a.m. About an hour and a half later, he was dead, but I was asleep. and the embassy didn't have our number correctly. There was one number transposed. We found out later. So we didn't find out until Monday morning. So Monday morning, I'm drinking my coffee. My wife calls me from work, and she just blurts out, "Daniel is dead." And I'm thinking, that's the worst joke I ever heard. And my wife doesn't joke. I said, "That's stupid. Why are you telling me a joke?" "No, he's dead." And then, of course, everything springs into action. I go and immediately go serve a panachida at the church. My son-in-law followed me because they were worried that I wasn't going to be okay driving. But I served a panachida at the church. That day, I served the panachida 3 times. And then we served liturgy, too. We literally came home after having had breakfast and the whole works and served liturgy like at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And then the next day, we served liturgy, and we got on a plane to go to Berlin. And we were in Berlin for a week to get his remains. And there was a lot of, stuff that happened. And one of the things that happened was we got his remains ready to be put on the plane, blah, blah, blah. And we had some people help us. That was just fantastic. So we flew ahead 1 day ahead. And then he flies over, I think it was a Friday. I don't remember what the day was, but he flies ahead. He flies behind us 1 day. And there was a terrorist threat in Heathrow Airport. So they had literally emptied the plane of all cargo, and it was sitting on the tarmac for several hours. And then the plane flew, I think it flew empty or with the passengers, but no cargo. And so he's the cargo. My son was a piece of cargo, and it had to be arranged for him to be flown the next day. So the funeral was going to be that day. It had to be moved to moved a day over. So there was all these kinds of temptations and everything like that. Archbishop Peter, lovely man. May his memory be eternal. I loved him very, very much. He called me up before the funeral, and he said, "Father Seraphim, I'm coming to you to celebrate the funeral. I don't want you to do anything. I'm not even going to tell you my plane arrangements. I'll get to your church." What bishop does that? Is that bizarre? He calls me on his cell phone and tells me exactly what he's going to do, and he did. And then his plane had to be delayed, but he did come. He did come and celebrated the funeral. He had to change his plans and everything like that. So Daniel was buried, and there was a lot of stuff that happened. Should I tell you the phenomena? Yeah. I think I'll tell you the phenomena.
Yes. Yeah.
So one thing that happened is I don't remember the exact words, but there was a child in our parish. He was 4 years old, and he had a dream the night that Daniel died. And he told his mother, he was kind of scared he'd get in trouble because it was kind of a weird dream. He said, I saw Daniel swimming, and then he was looking up, and there was an angel telling him, "It's going to be okay. You're going to be fine," as he was drowning. We actually have a picture of him drowning, strangely enough, because somebody took a picture from the other side and saw his hand sort of like this out of the water, Wow. And there were guards, lifeguards from Denmark, I think, that were vacationing, drinking coffee on the other side. They saw him go in, but they didn't see him. They saw he's floundering, so they jumped in to go after him. Well, if you've been to San Antonio, the Spree River is like that. The river walk is disgusting.
Oh, yeah,
The Spree River is dark, dark and cold. And so his buddy got across and looked for him. And by that time, Daniel had fallen under the surface, probably because of the coldness of the water and the clenching of his muscles. And he was only no more than 10 foot underwater, because that was as deep as the river was there, but you couldn't find him. So they got him out. And his heart was stopped. They did restart his heart, but it was really, really, this was after 30 minutes underwater. But his heart was really unstable. And then he arrested again, and he died in the ambulance. So he could have been alive when we went to Germany on a machine, and we would have had to go through all that. Right.
Yeah.
But it was, I think, one of God's mercy that he did die, and not that he wasn't just half dead with us coming to try to decide or to what to do, you know. But that was in June of 2017. So one of the phenomena was the angel talking to this boy saying he's going to be okay, or talking to Daniel saying you're going to be all right. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. And then the other really amazing one was he had a really good friend named Ramsey. They were in different plays together and stuff, and they were just very, 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 very good friends for all of high school. And she comes to the funeral, and she's, you know, she doesn't know all this stuff. She looks at these pictures. She doesn't understand. But as we were putting the top on the coffin at the very end, and I was the last one to do the nail. Actually, we didn't use nails. We used, you know, wood pegs and stuff. So I was the last one to pound, and I remember I was going boom, 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 5, right? Sort of a pattern. And at the last one, there was a crash, and an icon had literally levitated off of the iconostas, moved about 4 feet or so, and fallen straight down. And the reason why I say that is because it didn't hit the icon lamp, nor did it hit the gigantic bush that was in front of it. And a person saw it from the side, saw the icon move forward and then down. And this icon was the heroine of hell, or the heroine of Hades.
Whoa. Whoa.
The so-called resurrection icon. And she had asked God, oh God, please just give me a sign that he's going to be okay. Could you maybe move one of those pictures off the wall?
Wow.
That's what she said. And so it happened. And then she comes to me, it's like she's all afraid, like, I'm sorry, Father Seraphim. I might have done that. And I did that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your picture. I was just like, I could have just about hugged her. You know, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it'd be really bad if it was like, you know, the Last Judgment that fell off the wall. That wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the hearing of Hades. Yeah, that's I love that icon. That's so symbolic. I love, and the story of how that child had the dream, and the angel seeing Daniel in the water, and the angel saying that it's going to be okay, and him it happening on All Saints Day too. You know.
Yeah, you know. Daniel was a college student. He wasn't always doing the right thing, but may God grant him eternal memory. So,
right.
So that's the story of his death. And one more thing that happened, I consider his death to be a great blessing. I don't think anything God does is not a blessing. And from the very beginning, I felt that way. From the very instant of his death. Now, there was a lot of grief. I believe that literally for 50 days I wept, at least. Every day, at some portion of the day. I did 100 prostrations all those days. I can't do 100 prostrations anymore. 50 is my limit now. But I could do them faster. I time everything. When I did 100 prostrations before, it was like in 6 or 7 minutes. Now I do 50 prostrations in 6 minutes or 7 minutes.
Good though. That's still good.
Yeah. Well, you know. Anyway. There was the blessing is that the very first great blessing was on the day of his funeral, right after we secured the casket and we're going to bring it out to the car. I got a phone call, and the phone call was from the fiance of a person in prison who I had baptized, and his son had committed suicide, and he didn't know it yet, right? And there was going to be a family visitation the next day that was scheduled, and on the way down to bury Daniel, I'm on the phone to everybody I can in the prison to get permission from the warden to come down, because clergy don't go to the prison on Saturdays because that's a family visitation day. And so he gave me permission. And so I was in the visitation room with his fiance and his sister and waiting for him to come. And it was really a crazy moment, because everybody's happy, right? People buy vending machine stuff and they're all, hi, how are you? And everybody's sitting at the table. It's just, there's this joy in the room, right? And he walks in the room with a big smile on his face. And then he sees me. And I'm the canary in the coal mine, because I didn't belong there.
Right.
There's only one reason for me to be there. There's got to be bad news, right? So he came up to us. We didn't say a word to each other for 10 minutes. All we did was hug each other and weep. Nothing else. And I knew that was the right thing to do because I'd been through grief. You don't have to say stuff. It's like, I'm sorry for your loss or something like that. Or no, all you need to do is just be there for the person, feel for the person. And as a priest, of course, I had an agenda to help him get through his grief, right? But I understood his grief to some extent. I hadn't had a son commit suicide at 12 years old, right? I hadn't had that, I think 12 or 14. I hadn't had that to happen, but I'd lost a son suddenly, right? And so I knew what to do. I knew exactly what to do without even thinking about it. And I've had that happen all the times when people have had extreme grief. And there's a mission that's founded because of this. Because the woman, the family, Anna and Jason and Millie, they had lost their son, Jack, and he had had an auto accident. This is a couple years later, actually several years later. I think Jack's 3-year anniversary will be this March. And so she's going through incredible grief. He was 23 years old, prime of life, and he died in a terrible auto accident. And she was beside herself, and she'd heard about me because everybody in the world had heard about me. I have people on Daniel's list from everywhere. And so she calls me, and Maureen and I go down there, and we're there for them. And then I kept coming, and then we started a mission. So now I'll be going there actually this week. We try to go twice a month and serve, Vespers liturgy. We have catechumens. We've married people, We've married, well, I guess 2 people, and baptisms, everything. It's right out the middle of the country in the panhandle of Texas, where there's rattlesnakes and deer and stuff like that.
That's amazing.
And wheat, wheat and cotton. So that's one of. Tumbleweeds. They're cool. I like them.
They're kind of random when you see them.
I like them. I like them. I put one in my car because that was cool. And I was gonna put it as an ornament, and there was just tumbleweed all over the back of the trunk because it just flakes off. It's pretty crazy. They can get gigantic. They can get as big as a man. Yeah. They're pretty cool. But that's one of the great blessings is the helping a person in prison, and then also sort of a ministry to people that have lost. And I've given some talks and things about using the energy in grief. I'm very convinced that you have a question here. Why do some people don't deal with grief? Well, I think it's primarily because they don't look at it spiritually. They just only look at the human loss. They feel the human loss greatly, and oh gosh, there was a lot of human loss. Like I said, I wept for 50 days easy. Right. And it was an intense time. I was serving liturgy every single day and going to prison. So because I was afraid prison would not always let me serve liturgy because stuff could happen, even though I schedule liturgy there, I would have liturgy at midnight, and then I'd drive to prison.
Wow.
Crazy, for that during that duration. And I believe I didn't serve liturgy on the day after his funeral because I had to go to prison. And then after that, I started the 40 days count again. And I think it turned out to be 48 days in a row serving liturgy.
Can you explain the importance of the 40 days after somebody reposes, to pray for the dead?
Well, we believe that after the 40th day, the person has the particular judgment, and then basically the status of their soul determines will they be awaiting the resurrection in paradise or in Hades. And Hades is kind of a dark place, not a place of punishment, but a place of sort of a uncertainty and darkness and sadness. And we do believe some people have been rescued out of Hades. I don't really care too much about all the details there. For me, it's very simple. I pray because I love, and I don't stop loving somebody because they died. And so we have this tradition of after a person dies, we serve a panachida, certainly on the day they die, the third day, the ninth day, and then the 40th day, and then yearly. And I just do it. But definitely on the 40th day, we believe that the soul has been around the people it loves and the things it loves for the first 3 days after its death. And then after that it's shown heaven, paradise. And then after that is shown hell, actually for a longer period of time. And then after that, I believe on the ninth day, they're shown hell. So that's why we pray for them on the ninth day. And then on the 40th day, basically their disposition to await eternity is on the 40th day. So we pray for them a panachida.
The first couple days you said that they're close to their loved ones. Can you explain? So what does that kind of mean? Like how would someone experience that? Or feel that?
Well, I mean,
like an icon moving, maybe?
It could be. It could be. Basically, sometimes phenomena occurs right after a person's death and around the time, shortly thereafter. I don't really understand these things really well. I've got several big books. I haven't read about it. I'm a simple guy. I really think the most profound thing that we can believe about the dead is that they're not dead. Because God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And because of the resurrection, they are alive.
Right.
We are eternal creatures from the time of our creation, right?
Right.
We come out of nothingness, and then, the world was created out of nothingness. We come out of our mother and father, and we are created at that instant. We have a soul, and from that point on, we will never die. Our body will die, but our soul remains alive, and our soul remains conscious and able to see and hear and remember and think. And therefore, the righteous are not dead. The wicked are not dead, in terms of they're not winked out of consciousness like stepping on an ant or something. So we pray for everyone, good and bad. And if you pray for someone who's righteous, they pray for you. If you pray for someone who's in Hades, then may it be that they are benefited in some way. And I don't try to put a fine point on it. I know a lot of people really want that.
Right.
I find I'm a Christian, I pray.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And that 40 days that you're kind of talking about is also what some might refer to as like the toll houses, kind of, which is, again, some people, kind of almost like a...
Well, yeah.
I've heard Father Seraphim talk about this in some of his chats from Orthodox Ethos, and he says it very specifically, like this day is the toll house. This is the toll house of lying. This is the toll house of lust, and kind of like specifically. But then also, like, I've heard other priests kind of don't really talk about it or like really think about it that much.
I know the toll houses is used in our liturgical services. The term is used, and definitely the soul, if it has an attachment to something, it feels pain at losing that thing, right? So if you're attached to lust, you feel pain upon death because you can never act upon your lust again, right? You can feel your lust but not act upon it. But if we're attached to God, there's no pain. To the extent we're attached to God, I think there's no pain. So toll houses for me, obviously they're not little, booths up there, but there definitely is the soul will go through the demons screaming sins at it, even making up things.
Right.
And I don't pay too much attention in that. I don't want to just be terrified about that. I want to become a better person. I want to, that's my approach to it. I am not an expert about it at all. There are books that really talk about it pretty well. So really, I'm just not a theological expert about it, but I do know that when you're attached to something, then there's pain when you lose that thing. And so if we say that we're Christians and we don't love money, but then we get gypped out of $100 by somebody and we're mad, well, clearly we love money, right? So, we'll still have a problem with our attachments when we die.
When you were first talking about kind of the loss of Daniel, and you said that you saw it as a blessing, and that other people that kind of like that can't see it like that, they're thinking it more as like the human loss.
Mhm.
And I know I used to hear a lot of stuff like when people would say, "Oh, Christianity's not for me," or "God's not for me." I don't. Why would God ever like let anything bad happen? I like even my bless my mom's heart. I love her. My stepdad died when he was 54. He had a brain tumor, and that hit her very hard. And when I became a Christian, I told her, I'm praying for you, Mom. Like, and she got upset with me, and she said, if God were real or God existed, like he never would have let Al die. Like, and I was just like, I just have kept praying for her, through that. But I remember hearing that anger that she had, and I've heard that anger from people before, like, God, why would God ever let someone die? Like, why would God let that happen? And you said right away you knew it was a blessing for you, but you saw it as not that human loss. Can you kind of go into more detail on, like, do you kind of get what I'm saying? Like that mindset where some people see like loss as an attack on them, or God's a mean God, or how could God do that, versus you on the other hand, you're saying I see this as a blessing, or like not as such a, you still feel the grief from it, but you see it as more than that.
Well, I think if you have an experience of God, then you believe God. If you don't have an experience about him, then you believe things about him. And I think most people live a life that is not at all spiritual. They just live where they have things they believe about God. They might believe in the resurrection. They might believe that if you confess your sins and ask Jesus in your heart, you're saved. They might have very sincere beliefs, but they're just external beliefs, and they're not where they've actually internalized that God actually loves us and God made us for a purpose, and that he's not in any way cruel to us. So if you fundamentally believe that by experience, not by convincing yourself, you can't just convince yourself of it. You have to believe it by experience. And if you believe it by experience, then I immediately, this is really true. I am not trying to, con anybody. The moment he died, I thought, glory be to God. And I thought, what is it that is going to happen now? That is God showing his grace to us. And many things happened, like I've detailed a few of them. And I think that people don't live spiritually. They don't have a prayer life. They don't do prostrations. They don't weep for their sins. And then there's a self-centeredness. And really intelligent people thinking that why did God let him die? Everybody's going to die, sister. Everybody. We're all going to die. And why are we upset about somebody dying that we had 30 years with when children die of leukemia and they're dead at a year and a half or 2 years old after suffering, right? What, or people have horrible accidents or whatever, I mean, there's all these ways that people die, and I don't really judge any of them. I don't think that God punishes us per se through the way we die. I think we become like him or we don't. And people don't pray. And I think everybody should look for in anything that happens, how is this going to bless me? Because it's going to, if you allow it. You lose your sight. How is it going to bless you? You lose your job. How is it going to bless you? Everything's going to bless you, because meekness is to accept God's will in all things, to accept everything as God's providence, not to evaluate it, in terms of why me,
I had a dog. I don't have children. I wish I did, but I don't. But I have had a lot of animals in my life, and I've been very close to them. And I had a dog named Laika who I was very close to, and she was 14 and a half. She was very sick. She had diabetes. She had Cushing. She really was a trooper, and stuck with me for a long time. And this was right about when this was during the time when I became a believer in Christ. And when she got to the close to when she was going to die, I lost it. I didn't know how. I was in a very hard time of my life, and I just didn't know how I was going to get through it. And I remember, gosh, I'm almost going to tear up. God really did use her death to bring me closer to him. And because when I had to take her in to, have her put down, I literally just was like, I don't even know how I'm going to drive the car there. I don't know how I'm going to pick her up. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I was alone. And I just know that, gosh, I'm really going to cry. God took the wheel of the car, you know, in essence. He drove me there. He was with me. I felt closer to God through that experience. And my faith was strengthened through it, because after it was all done, I saw that God answered my prayers and was with me and helped me get through that in a way that, like, I never had felt before. And it was, you know, through the loss, something really good came out of that for me, and it was brought me closer to God through that. And so I mean, I've experienced,
it did that because you didn't just become angry. If you had become angry, why me, etc., you could have become an atheist.
right,
Because of, you know, why God. My mother did that. She didn't become an atheist, but she was Roman Catholic, and my dad was a man upstairs kind of guy, and she loved him very much. He loved her, and he got cancer and he died, because people get cancer and they die, and they had many, many years together. And she basically thought, why did God take him from me? And she still kept going to church, but she was just a shadow of her former belief. I remember she worked in a library, and there was a guy there working there too who was a former Roman Catholic who had become a Wiccan. And she thought that was just great because he knows that the Pope just gives people guilt trips, and he got out of that guilt trip, and now he's living his life as it was meant to be. And I, an Orthodox priest, was defending the Pope to her. Because I'm saying, no, the Pope is not just trying to make everybody guilty. I mean, you got to stop that. But she was just bitter because of his death.
Yeah. And so what's one of the amazing things that I can see tangibly that's come out of, you know, the passing of Daniel is Daniel's list, which is a prayer list that you have up on your website for your church, and it's on there, and you have a list where you're praying now for people that need prayer. You have this opportunity for people to be on your list and to ask for prayer. Can you explain a little bit what Daniel's list is?
Yeah, from the very beginning, I was looking for something to channel my grief. I felt this urge, and I think we all should find some purpose in our grief. You know, getting closer to God, yes, but in a practical sense, what does that mean? What that has meant for me is Daniel's list, increasing prostrations in my prayer, praying, increasing in general prayer for everyone, really making my prayer more intense. And from the very beginning, I was asking people to pray for him. And I'd say, if you pray for him, I'll pray for you for the rest of my life. And so, and then people started giving me names of people that had sudden losses, right? I mean, somebody died, you know. There's one story of a little girl. Her dad died, and she was 13, I think. And she was so sad that she, from the second story window, like a week later, she jumped out and killed herself. And I mean, that's just terribly, horrifically tragic. And that's so dark. And what do you do with that? Do you just say, oh, that's terrible? Well, I think that's stupid to just do that. I wrote her name down. I pray for that little girl every day. I pray St. Varus's prayer for her because there was suicide. I have probably 60 suicides I pray for. Oh, some people tell me, don't say suicides. People who died by their own hand or whatever. People who died by suicide. And I pray for those people. And I don't have any prejudices when I pray for them. I just say, God, have mercy on them if you will. And I pray for people who've lost someone, people who pray for Daniel, and people who've died suddenly, both Orthodox and not. I've got them divided up because obviously I commemorate the Orthodox in the proscomedy and I don't commemorate the non-Orthodox, but I pray for everybody every day.
You have probably thousands of names on that list.
No, you know, it's not thousands, but it'd probably be 2,000 or 3,000. Yeah, it's probably that much. Yeah, and I keep adding to it. In the beginning, I was doing it all the time, you know, and I was getting names from every source possible, Facebook, from texting, from email, from other stuff, and people telling me, and I'd have to write it down. And I tried my very best to keep a good record, and I'm terrible at those things, but I was always working on it, and I'm still updating Daniel's list. There's somebody that told me about a suicide of a family member just a couple days ago, and I promised them I would add them. And I've got them in my notes. I haven't yet added it, but eventually it'll get there.
Did you name Daniel after the prophet Daniel?
Yes.
That's a beautiful saint. I mean,
yeah, and actually, another great blessing is my boys. I've got lots of grandchildren, and I don't really favor any, although people would accuse me of it, because my 3 boys, Noah and Ezra, are brothers, and Owen, but Owen is Owen Daniel.
Oh.
And he's about 7.5. Noah's just about to turn 8, and Ezra just turned 5. And they got pregnant. Natalie and Elizabeth got pregnant with their sons the year that Daniel died. So 2017 they got pregnant, and then the next year. So I considered it sort of like God giveth, God taketh away, he gives,
Yeah.
Blessed be God kind of thing. And it was a real great consolation. And I remember telling them, I'm going to take care of these boys. I mean, like when you go to work or something, I'm going to take care of them. And they're not, no, you're going to get tired of it, or you're going to, they were kind of like, what's the word for it? Chauvinistic. It's like, oh no, you're going to get tired of diapers. And I said, dude, I was a nurse. I took care of every bodily excretion there ever was. And I changed my baby's diapers, and I didn't even use gloves. So that's it. Yeah, absolutely. So I almost had to get a letter from the Pope, but then, which would have been pretty hard, because the Pope knows I don't like him at all. So I took care of him sometimes. There was in the peak that I took care of him, I think twice a week for one, and once a week for the other. And I'm really attached to them, and they're really attached to me. And they're just an incredible blessing. And I just kind of poured my life into them. And in a way that maybe I didn't as much for my children, because I was busy working. I was busy being a stupid 30-year-old or whatever. And it's just sort of almost like getting a second chance to really be a dad. And it's been a huge blessing.
You mentioned earlier that, after you experienced this loss and went through that, and then you had the woman who contacted you whose 12-year-old child had committed suicide, and you went to visit the husband in prison, that you were able to connect because you had been through that grief.
Well, actually, he wasn't. It was his child, and she was engaged to him, and it wasn't hers. And he had gone to prison partially to as much as he could to protect David. Yeah. It was a convoluted story that I don't want to say publicly.
Right.
But yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, and I just, just relating on my own, like through, I mentioned like the loss of my dog, and after going through that, and I talked about it like publicly on my Instagram. There's a chapter in my book where I talk about the loss of Leica and how much it hit me. I feel like because a lot of people really experience when someone dies or a dog dies, it really like that grief comes and it's heavy, and we go through those stages of grief. It's something that we all do differently, and experience differently. But I feel like after, like, if someone has the loss of a dog or they have to say goodbye to their dog, like I'm able to be there more for that person because I went through that experience. And you said that one of the blessings of you going through this experience with losing your son, Daniel, I mean, especially as a priest, you're going to have a lot of people probably come to you that have loss and go through loss, but you're able to relate through that. And I think that that's a really profound thing to bring up as one of the blessings that comes from loss, is that you can, because you've been through that, you can relate and be there for other people now that are going through that.
Oh, that's absolutely. It happens all the time. But my approach is always, I don't know how to describe my approach. I try to get people to think spiritually, and that's sometimes quite a difficult thing. Yeah. I think if you don't think spiritually, everything's a problem. I mean, gridlock in Austin is a problem if you don't think spiritually.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're totally right on that. And I experienced that gridlock a lot on the highway, and then I think this is happening for a reason. Often I think it's so that I can practice patience or get my prayer rope out and pray
Mm-hmm.
and be like, because I'll get really upset. Oh, I'm going to be late now, and then I get angry, or the road rage can come out. But it's like, no, I'm getting an opportunity to practice. Like when I started really trying to practice the prayer, the Jesus prayer, I started getting a lot more moments in my life that gave me an opportunity where I needed to pray. It's like you can't you have to have the ball thrown to you if you want to learn to catch it.
Well, those opportunities were always there. You just didn't see them. And now that you have the prayer, you can get through them,
Yeah.
you know?
And speaking of prayer and praying for the dead, the prosphora, am I saying that right? The holy bread,
Mm-hmm.
the
Prospera,
prosphora.
yeah.
A part of that is is it the part is set aside for commemorating the living and the departed. Can you explain a little bit why some of that is set aside for the departed?
Well, we have the Prospera bread, and there's different styles. So the Russians do 5, and we do. I actually use the Greek loaf, which is one big loaf. So you cut out the lamb, put it on the discos. You cut out the portion for the Theotokos, cut out the portions for the 9 ranks of the saints, and then for your ruling bishop and for the civil authorities and for the reposed. And then you start commemorating people, and you take your knife, you take your sword. We call it a sword, but it's just a little, kind of like a knife, and it's usually in a triangle. And you just start taking little portions of bread out. So, for the servant of God, Kara, that's not, what is you, 14, right? What's your Christian? Eleni. So Eleni. If we don't say Kara, we'd say Eleni. And so, the servant of God, Eleni, and the servant of God, Daniel, and the servant, etc. And we'd commemorate them. Some people take a portion out for every single person. Some people like me, because I have so many names, and otherwise it's just impossible. I take it and I twirl it, and pieces come out from that.
Oh yeah, nice.
And some people are not purist about that, and they think that's terrible, but I do it. So everyone who's commemorated who is Orthodox has a portion of bread taken out and put on the discos. Then if they're not Orthodox, I pray for people who are not Orthodox in the Pros Committee. I do not take out bread for them. I just pray for them. So now we celebrate the liturgy, we commune the mysteries. Then what's left on the discos is only that bread that represents those we've commemorated. So then we pour it into the chalice when the priest comes back after giving communion to everybody. He commemorates them with the prayer. It's kind of funny that I say the prayer all the time in liturgy, and right now I can't think of it. Oh Lord God, remember the souls of thy servants by thy precious blood, O Lord. Remember the souls of thy servants by the prayers of thy saints. And then you pour the discos into the chalice. And so we're, in a way, you could say, communing those people, right? We're uniting those people with the body and blood of Christ. That's why we don't commemorate non-Orthodox, because non-Orthodox don't take communion.
Right.
See?
There's a story that I heard of a priest that was told by, I think, his bishop that he needed to do the liturgy for 40 days in a row. And it was, it's a story, and but it's real. And so he's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm just a small church. Who's going to bake the bread? Like, how am I going to get chanters? Somehow he had someone who would bake the bread every day. The chanters came. So he served the liturgy for 40 days. And he realized, he looked up one day when he was serving the liturgy, and he saw like what was like a stadium of people just surrounding him, but it was the dead. And he realized that they were coming to the liturgy. I mean, he could see it. And so he just continued serving the liturgy for like a year or something. And then he saw his bishop again, and he goes, well, how did the 40 days go serving the liturgy? He goes, well, I never stopped. I'm still doing it. And it's a really beautiful story about how the dead does commune. And that
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We don't know how all these things happen. We just know that God is merciful, and he tells us to do things, and we do them.
Yeah. There's another story that I heard about, and I think this is going to be in the book coming out, about Elder Ephraim of Arizona. And he was caught up and he was just like, when God takes someone somewhere in prayer, and he found himself in a room with a long dining table, and at the table there were all sorts of people kind of like raggedly dressed, and intense hunger in their eyes as if they were like starving. And he knew his mom was in a kitchen on the other side, though he didn't see her. He just knew she was there, and she would take a pan and kind of put it through a swinging door, and she would hand it to him, and he would go around and hand the food to the people at the table. And he watched that it satisfied them, and an angel would come and take them away, and then another person would come and take that place. But he realized through that experience, being caught up and having that vision from seeing that from God, that the same thing, that the prayers, this was the prayers during the divine liturgy for the prayers of the dead, that it's doing something. It's actually real. They're actually communing, and it's helping people.
Oh, absolutely. Now it's two-way street though. One of my favorite stories is, I won't get it all completely right, but there was a priest who was very pious and had long commemoration lists. So his prose committee would be hours long, and he was loved by his parish, but he had a problem. He was a drinker, and one time he got drunk on Saturday. It was his custom sometimes to drink after services on Saturday, and he was still drunk when he was going to serve. And he thought, oh, what am I going to do? And so, probably vanity and everything, he didn't want to tell the bishop, so he went and served. And he dropped the chalice and spilled it, Now he has to tell the bishop. He tells the bishop, and the bishop summons him and says, come to my office. And so he comes, and the bishop is very stern with him, and it's late in the day, and it's very clear that the bishop is just going to defrock him. And the priest is trembling and everything. And the bishop says, I don't have time today. You come see me in the morning and we'll finish this. Then the bishop had a vision at night in which all these people came to him and said, what are you doing with our priest? Leave our priest alone. Don't you do anything to our priest. And those were the dead that he was commemorating. And so the next morning, the bishop tells him about this vision, and he says, I won't defrock you, but you have to stop drinking. And the bishop counseled him, and then he actually stopped drinking and obviously became better in serving as a priest. But it was his praying for all of the dead that saved his priesthood.
Wow. And it's so interesting too, coming out of Protestantism, and there's this like, they're like, they're dead, you can't pray for just the dead's dead, like you can't pray for them, there's no need to pray for them, the saints aren't alive, like they're dead too.
Well, they don't say the saints aren't alive, but they're I don't know, they really don't define it. They're sleeping or something.
Yeah.
They don't get it. I don't understand. They don't understand when St. Peter says, I will endeavor after my decease that you still have these things in remembrance. It's like St. Peter says, I'm going to die, but I'm still going to take care of you.
Yeah.
St. Peter's speaking with confidence,
right,
that he knows that he's still going to be a pastor in their life, but they don't take those verses that way. Then,
right.
They take them whatever way they do.
I was talking to a nun from Paris-Gavie that was visiting my church, and we were talking about Elder Ephraim, who started the monasteries, and she said when he passed, someone came up to her and said, well, who's going to take over now that he's gone? And she started laughing. She goes, well, it's not like the church needs a CEO or something like that. Elder Ephraim's still alive. He's still here. He's still taking care of this place. Like we don't die. It's not like you're dead, you're done. The saints are they're more alive almost, in paradise. And that God, said.
Oh, they're definitely more alive. They have better intelligence and vision. I mean, how many prayers of St. Nicholas are being said right now?
Right.
2 million, 10 million. He hears every one.
Wow.
I mean, that's by the Holy Spirit he can hear, right? Because we definitely know that the demons cannot hear our thoughts, nor can anybody else. But God can reveal our thoughts to a saintly person or to an angel, but nobody can read your thoughts, right?
Right.
Except only God knows them. But certainly God reveals all these thoughts, all these prayers to all the saints.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because my saint, like I said, I'm a Lenny, and my saint is Helen, and she's a great saint. She's a lot of people's saint, and I want to feel closer to my saint. And I actually was thinking, I was like kind of talking to her, and I'm like, I know you have a lot of people that you're their saint, but maybe like we could get to know each other better. And it kind of hit me that same thing, that the saints, they can almost, it's like they don't, not like limited to just being with one person, or like you said, like hearing the prayers of one person. They're able to do much more than that where they are, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What I recommend to you definitely is do a prostration to her every day, or 3.
Yeah.
You know, Holy Saint Helena, pray for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Now I have her icon right here, right next to your saint. I brought one of my icons of Saint Seraphim out for our chat. Yeah. So that's another thing, is that, I always like to think about, like, I'm getting so much clarity now that I'm Orthodox from the teachings in Protestantism, is they have such a problem with not just praying for the dead. Like they don't do it. And so they're missing out. Their loved ones are missing out on those prayers from them. And it's very sad.
Well, they don't understand the resurrection. I don't believe that Protestants truly believe in the resurrection. Now they do in a objective way, but they don't experience it like Orthodox do. I mean, for us, the saints are alive and around us. We have millions of occurrences of the saints doing things, even for just terrible people like me. So it happens everywhere, and they don't understand that the resurrection means that their loved ones, they're still alive. And those that are in paradise can certainly hear them.
Right.
And those that are not in paradise will pray for them. And may God have mercy on them. So they don't understand that. There's just this weird, it's a strange kind of bizarre delusion to believe in the Bible, but not the church that wrote it.
Right.
I've never understood that. That's really what led me to Christianity, because here we are preaching the 4 spiritual laws on the beaches of New Jersey and stuff. And it's like, what's our authority for this?
Right.
It's like I interpret the Bible and say, oh, baptism, we all got to be baptized. It's to be born again, to be born from above, to become a new creature. For us, baptism is a symbol. You can only do it when you're like adult and you're showing the congregation that you're a believer. Well, okay, we read the same Bible and we come up with a different conclusion. We read John chapter 6 and came up with vastly different conclusions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So who's right? There has to be the church interpreting the Bible, because the church wrote the Bible. So they don't have that interpretation, and they don't have this idea, and it's not well developed among most Orthodox Christians, to be honest, but the church itself at its core has this idea of what our purpose is, and that we have fulfilled that purpose to become in the likeness of God, with watchfulness, with repentance, with remembrance of death, with very many prayers, etc. They don't have that idea at all. They don't have this idea of, we talked about before we started, nepsis, which I don't understand very well. I can't claim to understand it in terms of really experientially, but definitely my whole soul knows that this is the way of life, is to have watchfulness and to always see everything as it really is, never as it partially is. And the only way you can see everything as it really is if only God is abiding in your heart, because God sees everything as it is. So if there's any darkness in your heart, there might be something you see in a distorted way, or because of your ego, or because of your passions, or because of your ignorance, or whatever. God has none of those things. So if you learn to see things even partially as God does, then you're a seer of mysteries. And they don't have any of that. They don't have any of that mystiological tradition. They don't have the idea that you pray the Jesus prayer until the prayer starts to become active in you, and then there's a sense of God in you. They don't understand that. To them, that's like repetition. I mean, when I was a Protestant, the only thing we did was we had quiet time with our Bible. That was prayer.
Right.
And there was nothing else, And once in a while, some sweet person would say, I'll have you in prayer. And I thought, no, you won't. You didn't write down my name. And what are you going to do? You're going to just pray for 180 people saying, oh, Father God, I just want to pray for Tim. That was my name before I was baptized, right? And, that he would get a good grade in his classes. And I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, it gets kind of ludicrous, Instead, just pray for people with Lord Jesus Christ have mercy, or even Lord have mercy. And the ones that are really sort of hit your heart in a certain way, then you do prostrations for them. They don't have any of that. They don't have any of that ascetical tradition. And so they don't understand the experience of God. They understand the knowledge about God, but not the experience of God as a general rule. But then again, if you walk into any Orthodox church and you look around, 90% of the people are the same.
Do you think that that's more of a recent thing that's happening in Orthodoxy, or do you think it's kind of always been that way?
Read the sermons of St. John Chrysostom. He's complaining about the same stuff that is happening to us.
That's true. And
so
Paul's letters, right?
Paul's letters too. So I mean, well, they're a little different because they were coming out of paganism and they still had all these old habits and stuff. But we don't have any excuses. We've been way out of paganism, and now, as a Christianity is diving back into it, with quotes around it. Of course, we're not doing it, but now Christianity is being defined as whatever you want it to be.
Right. And people are defining it on their own as they read the Bible on their own. And if you're a Protestant, you don't have the church fathers interpret their commentaries or the saints' interpretations of things. You're just figuring it out on your own, and then all of a sudden you've got another new denomination.
That's right, and there's no continuity.
Right.
So that's why they don't understand prayer for people, or that people would pray for them that are dead. That just doesn't compute to them. It sounds like idolatry to them. Literally, right. They get. I know someone that a person said, I'm praying for your mother. She became angry. What do you mean? You think she's in hell or something? She's with Jesus.
Right. Just automatically, so certain about it.
Automatically. I remember somebody had I think an uncle, and this uncle was just a bad dude. He'd been through multiple marriages, multiple destructive relationships, drugs, criminality, blah, blah, blah. He was a bad dude, and he died. And their comment was, I'm so glad he's with Jesus now. Because when he was 12 years old, he went to some camp and he went to the altar call. And so he accepted Jesus in his heart. And because of that, he's with Jesus now. And instead, they should say, I love my uncle. I loved him very much. He really screwed up his life. I'm going to pray for him the rest of my life with a prostration.
Right.
That's a better approach.
You bring up prostrations a lot. I know that's a big part of your prayer life. Can you explain, to the listeners who might not really understand the reason why we do prostrations and kind of the more depth behind that?
Well, we do prostrations. The simple answer to all this stuff is we do some prostrations because that's what the church does and we're obedient. Now, you can understand why, but you don't have to understand why to do things and do things correctly. So basically, why do we fast? Because we're obedient. I mean, that's a fundamental primary reason. Why do we do prostrations? Because we're obedient. Why do we go to the services to prepare for communion? Because we're obedient. Well, maybe 20% of us are obedient about that, to go to Saturday services. Right. But the reason we do prostrations is because when you do a prostration, your whole body is praying, and you're also putting yourself in a state of mind of that you're weak and that you need God's mercy. It's not like, please don't judge me, please don't kill me, because that's not how we think of God. What an idea to think of your Father as, please don't kill me. Instead, you have awe before him, and you just are overcome with a sense, at least theoretically, a sense of God's greatness and your terribleness. I guess I made up a word. And terrible, chief of sinners. And so you do it, you have a compunction when you're doing the prostration. And prayer it has to be quality and quantity. So you should do a lot of prayer. and you should do it well.
Yeah.
And prostrations help you to do prayer better because it's better to concentrate. It's better for concentration in general.
I injured my knees in October. I had a fall. I fell down some stairs and landed on my knees and had a really bad injury on them. And they've been they're still swollen. I still have like synovial fluid like underneath one. And when I first went, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to prostrate. Like I'm not gonna be able to lean on my knees. And I was really going through it at this time. And I would remember the first time I just went into front of my, my prayer corner to cry in front of God and get down and prostrate to the ground to cry because I need it. And it hurt so badly. And I felt so much more how weak I am because of the injury on my knees and then going down to prostrate and feeling that pain. And then even like at church where, there's times where we prostrate and doing that in front of everybody and having to get, so hard for me to put weight on my knees and to get down. And it just isn't, that injury just increased how I'm like, oh, I'm even weaker than I even realized so you mentioned like we prostrate to kind of show how weak we are. Like I feel that for sure with my, God gave me this injury as a blessing.
I mean, what's our major sin? I mean, our major sin is we're proud, right? I mean, somebody would argue it's vanity. I still don't understand the difference between pride and vanity. I read it all the time. But basically, we're proud, right? We're proud. We're vain. We have a tendency to elevate ourselves. We have a tendency to self-idolize ourselves, to think of ourselves as the center of life, like a 1-year-old does. And when you prostrate, you're breaking through that a little bit. Prostrations are so important. For one thing, we're such lazy people, and we're barely physical anymore, and it's healthier for us. And when your blood is flowing, you can think better.
Right. I
find that definitely the case when I've prostrated, and right now I'm doing 50 prostrations in the morning, and I sometimes do them, without touching anything. Sometimes I have a stool and I kind of put my hand against it a little bit because I feel kind of stove up that morning for a little while. And then I get back to doing them without touching anything. But then I do 50 prostrations and I'm warm and I'm more alert. Yeah. And I can pray better. Yeah. It's physical, it's spiritual, it's psychological, it's all of those things. Right. And we have to have a sentiment that we are submitting ourselves to God. And then we wouldn't ask, why did God do this to me? Why did God make all this gridlock in Austin? How dare he do that? Or why did my son die? Or why did my dog die? Or why is the priest so mean? Or whatever it is, right?
Right. So bringing up fasting, kind of like switching more into, this is a great like kind of transition from praying, prostration, obedience. I didn't realize this, but when you look back in the Garden of Eden, like they were fasting then, right? And then the first obedience was broke in the Garden of Eden because Eve, she ate from the tree that she wasn't supposed to. Can we talk about how obedience was broke in the Garden of Eden and how fast?
Yeah, well, let's talk about the progression of sin first, because I think that's important, because certainly they were fasting, but they were eating delicious foods. They were not fasting in the way we fast, in which when we fast, there's certainly things that we would like to eat that we don't eat, and maybe we go hungry a little bit, et cetera, et cetera. They were not, they were satiated. They were eating delicious food. But Eve comes to the tree and the serpent is there, and Eve has no intentions. She's just walking by, and she has no intentions of eating from the tree. She's, my father told me not to do it, so I'm not going to do it. And then the serpent talks to her, and Eve answers. And what Eve should have done is say, I'm not talking to you. I'm going away, right? But she didn't do it. So she allowed that first impulse to come in. Now, that's not a sin. That's not a sin.
That's that thought that, yep.
Mm-hmm. It's not a sin. It's not a sin. And then the serpent says, well, God doesn't want you to be like him. Eat this, you'll become like gods. That's the honest truth. That is God's truth, that if they will become like gods, but not then. They weren't ready yet. Right. So the serpent tells them a partial truth, and it appeals to her vanity, right? And she engages with these thoughts. And even then, she could have broken away, but it was really hard at that point. And then she looks at the fruit, and she said it looked good to eat, right? The scripture says it looked good to eat.
Right.
And then she ate it. So she had the lust for food after she had the provocation to her vanity. So if she hadn't listened to the serpent at all, she would have been home free. If she had disengaged after the serpent says, you'll become like gods, it's like, are you stupid? God is God and I'm his child, get away from me. But no, she listened. And then she was, broke the fast because she looked at the fruit and saw it was good to eat. So there's that progression. It's really a fourfold progression. You have the provocation, and then you either engage with it or you don't. If you engage with it, you're going further down the line, and then you get an attachment to it or a coupling to it. And then there's the commission of the sin, whether it's just in the thoughts or in the actions, right? And so fasting is our way of being obedient to God. We need to eat. We have to eat. So there's the old saying, you can't eat just one potato chip. Well, yes, it's really hard to eat one potato chip. Yeah. So it's easy to eat no potato chips, right? So we have a really a desire to eat, and we have a desire to eat good foods that are good and foods that we really like and stuff like that. And it's fine to eat delicious foods, but it's also fine to put foods in perspective, because God is our life. God is our bread. So we put it in perspective. Our fasting is not meant to fully debilitate us. Now, with some of the really holy fathers and mothers, they did stuff that was just crazy. Right. But that was by the grace of God. We shouldn't debilitate ourselves by fasting, but we should go hungry, and we should eat less, and we should definitely follow the fast, and to the extent that we're able. And this always should be done under the counsel of a spiritual father. If you don't have a spiritual father, if you're living in, out in the middle of nowhere and there's no church, well, then I have people contact me from like all these countries, Pakistan and India and Korea and North Korea, and I mean everywhere. And so they have any access to anything. And so they, you follow the fast of the church. But it's better if you have a spiritual father, and a lot of times the fast might be mitigated because of a person's weakness. But then it's being done with a blessing. Right. If it's not done with a blessing, it's bad news.
Right. Yeah, I can be a little rigid when it comes to fasting sometimes, and I actually I went to confession recently and told my spiritual father I had olive oil on Wednesday, and he goes, "You have my blessing." He just shot back right away. You have my blessing for that. And it just broke. I was like, oh, I guess it was just confessing and saying that I did that, and not being so, sometimes I can be kind of pharisaical about it and just want to follow, check all the boxes, do it perfectly. But am I actually am I doing this for obedience, or am I doing this, to grow from the fast? I mean, the fast is supposed to be a struggle, right? It's not supposed to be something that's easy for us.
I don't know about that. I think the fast is just a way to become more alive. I don't really, yes, there's struggle in it, but I don't consider it a struggle. Yeah. I don't think of it with that terminology. I actually feel more alive in Great Lent than any other time of the year. Yeah. So I love fasting. Now, would I want to fast literally for the rest of my life? I don't know if I have the strength to do that, but and I think it's good the church has fasting, it's feasting, and we should just do what the church does,
Right. So when we come in, so that a new thing for me as a new Orthodox Christian was learning how much that we fast, and we fast on Wednesdays and Fridays, and we have the fast of the Dormition in the summer. We have the fast for the Nativity for about 40 days, and then around Christmas, and then we have the Great Lent fast, and then we have the Apostles' fast, and every then there's certain days where we get exceptions because it's maybe a feast day, or there's a certain saint where we can have some wine or some fish or something. But kind of entering Great Lent, we're basically going to be going 40 days without meat, without dairy. We'll have a couple, on weekends we can have olive oil, I believe, and some days wine.
If you can have olive oil, you can have wine. Okay. It's always olive oil and wine.
Why is that? Do you know? I guess
Well,
the pressing of grapes, the pressing of olives.
I guess it's wine and olive oil go together. Now,
Yeah.
the oil thing. Some people say that you can have other oils.
Yeah, let's talk
I
about
don't
that.
care. I really don't care. I personally would prefer not to have other oils. So personally, in my own private eating, I don't have oil. But if somebody serves something with oil and it's not olive oil, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have a conniption fit.
Right. Right.
And some people also say wine is like wine and hard liquor, which is basically wine that's been distilled. But beer, that's different. So you
Right.
can have beer.
Right.
All right, if you want to have beer, go ahead. But I've taken the more strict approach. But when I was younger, I didn't always. I'd say, oh, I can have beer.
Right. That's funny. And so then fasting is more than just fasting from foods too, right? If somebody's in a marital relations are to be fat, we're supposed to be fasting from that type of stuff.
Yes, that's the optimum, but that is something that has to really occur under the supervision of a spiritual father. First, we don't eat meat, then we don't eat cheese and eggs. I guess then we don't eat meat, we don't eat cheese and eggs, we don't eat fish, and then we don't eat wine and oil, right? We have a progression, and there are days that you can have one but not the other, et cetera, et cetera. If you can have wine, you can have oil. If you can have fish, you can have wine and oil as well. If you can have eggs, like we can this week, then you can obviously have fish, wine, and oil, right? Mm-hmm. So like this week, we can have everything except meat. Or we can choose to have everything except meat. You can have anything you want. You want to go to Whataburger, go ahead, but that's your choice. We should choose not to have foods out of obedience, right. And that's where it's really, really useful. And that's the same thing now. The greatest progression would be for a marital couple to be apart from one another, to not come together for the purposes of prayer. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's right there in the scripture. So we stay away from one another for prayer, not just for some sort of piety, right? And if one person doesn't have the strength for that, then the other person must participate in sexual relations gladly, not like, okay, I know you got to do this. No, that's very important. St. Paul did something that was unbelievably revolutionary for the time. He not only said that the woman's body belongs to the man, which is like, duh, from time immemorial, men have possessed women, right? It's a terrible truth. Right. He said that. Of course, he didn't mean it in that terminology, like the pagans would possess a woman, but he meant that the man's marital conjugal rights, the woman must respect them. Then he said the man's body belongs to the woman, the exact same thing, which is revolutionary. It's like women are an equal setting here, equally have sexual rights as much as men. Now, we all know that men tend to be more sexual than women, but a woman has sexual rights as much as a man does. So the two must decide to not come together for the purposes of prayer. And if one is weaker, then go, then they shouldn't. What I tell people is especially if a woman, she might have become an Orthodox Christian, she might have been baptized when she was in Russia, but she married somebody who wasn't, Orthodox or whatever. And then she's pious and he's not. And if he wants to have sex on Saturday night, then I say, be obedient. And yes, you may come to communion. Now, maybe some people are horrified at that, but let them be horrified.
Right. Well, we're not supposed to judge each other, right? And like everybody's is kind of getting, I like to say, like different medicine from God, for different,
right.
blessings.
But it's really important. You've got to do the other stuff before you try to stay apart from each other in sexual relations. Mm-hmm. So in general, with young married couples, I would say, limit your sexual liaisons. Don't do it on Wednesday, Friday. Try not to have sex on Monday, but do not allow yourself to become tempted, right. Especially because we're in a culture now that people have been exposed to such uncleanliness before they're married. Right. And the whole culture is awash with uncleanliness, right. With perversion, that it's very easy for a person to slip into porn, masturbation, bitterness, irritation, all those things are much more terrible sins than coming together on the marriage bed.
Right. Right. Right.
Right?
That's true. That's
So
very
I
true.
do not, absolutely. So I do not limit people. I try to say, limit yourself in some way, but don't make it to be your idol that you have to do this. I want you not to be eating meat, not to be eating cheese and eggs, et cetera, et cetera. And even those things, some people can't handle it.
Right.
I mean, it's really bad as a mother, as a father, as a priest, anybody who has authority. You should not tell somebody to do something they are not capable of doing. That's a sin.
Because it creates like a stumbling block for them, or
exactly. Yeah. You should move them towards the ability to, like your spiritual father. What did he do? You have a blessing.
Yeah, I was surprised.
You know why he did?
Why? Tell me.
Did that because he wanted by his blessing to remove the sin.
Oh.
See, so because of his love for you, he's like, oh, I don't want her to be responsible for that. You have a blessing. So, and I have a story for that. That I heard in Greece from Father. I
love your stories.
So there's a monk there. He was the abbot for a long time, Father Kyprianos, and he was obviously he's very old now, and he's has some dementia, and he's a sweet man, but he's was the abbot there. But before that, of course, he was a novice, and he was this and this and this. So he was a young monk on a monastery in, I believe it was a Mount Athos, but it might not have been. I think it was. And anyway, he was told there were some people coming, and they told him, oh, you need to fry up some potatoes for them. They were able to have fried potatoes twice a year in the monastery. Twice a year. And everybody was like really looking forward to it. But this was not one of those days. So he was supposed to fry the potatoes and give them to them, right? And of course, he wasn't supposed to eat any. And he listened to his thoughts, and it's like, why won't they let me have some? And I'll just have a few. So he lost his ability to resist that sin. He locked the door to the kitchen, and he started frying potatoes. And then he also got some soap suds, and like he was supposedly cleaning. And people would knock on the door, and he says, "Oh, I'm cleaning. I can't. Don't come in yet," and et cetera, et cetera. His spiritual father was praying, and came, by God's allowance, knew this was happening. He came to the door, Father Kyprianos, through the prayers of our Holy Fathers, and he doesn't hear anything. And through the prayers of our Holy Fathers, he doesn't hear anything. Father Kyprianos, I know you're in. No, it wasn't Kyprianos then. I think his name was Cherubim. I don't remember. And I know you're in there. Oh, Father, I'm washing dishes and everything. He says, I know that you're cooking potatoes and you're eating them. And he opens the door, and he's like, all that. And then he comes in weeping, his spiritual father. And what he says is, I give you a blessing to eat potatoes. I don't want this to be your sin. And he was weeping because he knew that his spiritual son was committing a sin.
Wow.
Wow. And that was the last major encounter he had with his spiritual father. I think he died the next. He said something like, I know that I'm dying soon, and I don't want this sin to be on you, so I'm taking it off.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Instead of like going in, you're eating potatoes, you're disobedient, you're 500 prostrations, no ice cream after dinner. And instead, he was like, I'll take the sin upon myself. God bless you.
Wow.
Can you imagine? That's a whole different way of looking at things,
Yeah, no. And now I understand why I got the blessing for the olive oil. Like I thought, oh, it's supposed to, because I'm so rigid. He's trying to, teach me. And then now I'm talking with you, and it just clicks. Like, yeah, he's covering that sin. And by saying that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, so if you have a tendency, yeah, they're awesome. If you have a tendency towards rigidity, then, he's going to do that. Another spiritual father might say, well, you shouldn't have done that. God bless you, but don't do it again or whatever. But his approach was, God bless you, because he didn't want you to ruminate on the sin.
Yeah. Well, and then I had, I think it was last week, I didn't realize that, I went to my church, the monastery I go to, and, it was a Wednesday, and there were hard-boiled eggs out served for breakfast after liturgy, and I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go have a hard-boiled egg." And I get the egg, and I start peeling it, and a friend of mine next to me goes, you know that if you want to commune on Sunday, you have to fast still on Wednesday and Friday. And I stopped and my heart almost broke because I was going to put salt and pepper on the egg. I was really excited to eat the egg. I was like so excited to eat this egg. I went, oh, well, I really want to commune on Sunday. So I was like, I'll take this egg home and I'll give it to my dogs. And I was there waiting around after liturgy to see my spiritual father. And so I went in to see him. And it's actually, while I was waiting to see him, he sent one of the fathers out to ask if I wanted a cup of coffee while I was waiting, because he was going to be a little bit longer. And I'm like, oh, no, I couldn't bother you for a cup of coffee. I'm fine. No, thank you. So I get in to see my spiritual father, and instantly he goes, you didn't get a cup of coffee? And I was like, no, I didn't want to bother the father for a cup of coffee. And he radios him, and he's like, Eleni's right here. She was too shy to ask for a cup of coffee. Get her a cup of coffee. And then he goes, what kind of coffee do you want? And I look down, he has one. And I'm like, I think there's cream in it. And I go, well, we can't have cream, so I'll just have black coffee. He goes, she'll have, cream in her coffee too. And then I go, well, I want to be able to commune on Sunday though. And I pull out the egg and I go, I have this egg and I was going to eat it. But then I heard that if I eat this egg, I won't be able to commune. And he goes, eat the egg right now. He goes, pull out that egg.
All right, that's awesome.
He pulls out the egg. And then I go, then he radios the father again. He goes, bring Eleni some salt and pepper too for the egg. And then I go, but if I eat this egg now, I was like, I don't really like the yolk. And so then I'm going to have to set that aside because I'm getting all awkward. He goes, you don't eat the yolk? He goes, you need the yolk for your brain. So he goes, eat the yolk, eat the egg. He breaks it in half, salt and peppers it. The father brings me a coffee. He's like, this whole thing was just this beautiful moment of medicine for me, and I needed that. And of course he said, tomorrow you can just on Saturday just make sure you don't have olive oil and you follow the fasting that day, you'll be fine to commune on Sunday. So he gave me the blessing for all that. But yeah, I ate that. It was such a good egg.
There's another person that went through some difficult times and is at the monastery. It's still around it's now around the monastery in Arizona. And she was just a mess, and she was just having trouble saying her prayers and stuff. And so she didn't say her communion prayers. And I think he met her before or something, and she was like, had a look. He says, what's wrong? I didn't say my communion prayers, so I can't commune. He says, you can commune, just say them afterwards. Can you imagine? I mean, this is love. This is what a spiritual father does. It's not like we should just make this for everybody, but these exceptions are beautiful.
Little economias, right?
Yes, but it's not a rule for everybody. It's not like you can eat eggs and then have communion.
Right.
But in your case, you needed that. And I love how he forced you to eat stuff. And that's really, really good.
Why is it that we do this fasting during Great Lent? Can you explain why this long fast happens while we go through Great Lent and we go through the resurrection of Christ?
Oh, sure. Because fasting really, really helps you spiritually. If you do it with the right intention, then it really, really helps you become just more intelligent spiritually, more vigorous spiritually. I'm more vigorous in my body when I fast. I know not everybody's like that, but certainly prayer is easier when I'm fasting. And the whole purpose of Great Lent is to meet God, is to somehow change, to open your heart, and God comes in. And God is always here to come in, but we're not always open to him. So we can't do it for 365 days, but we can for these 50 days, basically. We could be fasting and praying and saying the prayer of St. Ephraim every weekday and all these things, which is more intense. And so it's like a sprint for that period of time. You can't sprint the whole time, but you can, now we have 50 days of the year approximately where we're going to be fasting and praying and being more intense about it. But by no means should we be saying, oh, Lent is so hard. Oh, it's so hard not to have meat. Oh, I'm so tired. No, all these things are to bring you to a better awareness, a better watchfulness, a better sense of feeling God in your heart. I'm more alive during Great Lent than any other time of the year. And does it get tiring sometimes? Yes. But is it hard sometimes? I don't eat before pre-sanctified liturgy. I don't require that of my parishioners. They have to not eat after,
you do it in the morning,
basically
or
afternoon.
after Vespers?
We have one morning and one evening.
Yeah.
And
Do you
the
fast
evening
all
one, I
day?
don't eat.
Yeah.
Fast all day.
Yep.
Fast all day, with the exception that I'll drink coffee in the morning.
Right.
And
Right.
because I found that I'm able to carry over with coffee. Maybe some people can do it without coffee. God bless them. You know,
Well, you're roasting your own beans. Your coffee's excellent, I'm sure. So
it is good. Yeah.
hard to give up.
Yeah. I should during Great Lent, I should only drink Folgers coffee. Oh no.
Oh, maybe you should try
That's
that.
terrible.
You could do that starting next week.
Oh, that's so terrible.
I
Oh
find
no.
I have issues with gluttony sometimes where I'm an extremist where I can like go without, I can not eat, but then like get the food and it's like, oh, it's cheese fair week. Well, I'm going to eat all the cheese I can. I'm going to have cheesecake. I'm going to have cheese pizza and all this. And I'd have too much. And I feel like when you think of like the passions and the way to help heal the passions is with the virtue, you know, the opposite of that. And so fasting is a good thing for me to combat my my falling into gluttony. I'm looking forward to practicing fasting and practicing not having as much. And I also I wanted to kind of talk about not, there's the fast where it's like you can't have the dairy, you can't have the meat, you can't have these certain things, but there's also fasting where you're not eating. Like you kind of just said that, because before we have communion, we're supposed to have prepared with prayer and fasting and the blessing of our spiritual father before we commune. I don't know, like I don't, for at least midnight, I don't have any water before I commune. We don't have any, no food before.
That's a standing
normal,
rule.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
throughout, when Lent is happening, you mentioned that you're not eating before the pre-sanctified liturgies. How do you go long? Do you go for a couple of days ever during Lent where you're not eating at all? Like, do you ever take?
Well, there's a tradition that for the first 3 days of Lent, you don't eat on Monday, you don't eat on Tuesday, and then you'll eat on Wednesday after pre-sanctified liturgy, Vespers, in the evening. And I follow that tradition, but I do drink coffee.
Right.
But I'll tell you something about that tradition. In Simenopetra, where Bishop Emilianos is from, and he just was at our parish, and he was talking to our catechumens. And in this, he had so many nuggets. It's an hour and a half of gold.
And that's on your website, right?
It's there now, yeah. Well, it's on the YouTube website.
The YouTube website. Okay, I'll put the link in the bio.
Yeah. Yeah. Orthodox Net is the YouTube, whatever it's called. Channel. So anyway, he said that the custom was in Simenopetra, you don't have water, you don't have anything until Wednesday night, nothing.
Wow.
And he'd done that several times, and he was going to do it again. And he just got sick and started vomiting. I think it was on Tuesday, right? And he goes to his elder, who is Elder Emilianos, who's, if he's not a saint, then we better quit right now. He's not declared a saint, but he was certainly holy. And the elder said, he tells him, elder, I'm throwing up. I don't know what to do. And the elder literally told him, he said, "What are you, stupid? You need to eat something." Yeah. And so he says, "Go get a coffee and some water and some dried bread, and you'll be better."
Yeah.
And so it's like, dude, if you can't do it, you can't do it.
Right.
Okay. So I don't require people to do things they cannot do, but I do try to stretch them beyond what they think they can do.
Yeah.
And
that's good, right? That's kind of the purpose of, you said in Lent, we're supposed to change and grow through that experience.
Right. So try to fast, and, maybe you'll break the fast and you'll go to the abbot and he'll say, well, God bless you. You shouldn't do that. Or maybe he'll say, I bless you to eat an egg or whatever. There's another story from Jordanville. Archbishop Averki there was some novice or I don't remember who it was, but he was getting all uppity about fasting during Great Lent. Oh, I think what it was is Archbishop Averki asked for an Oreo cookie. And I might be confabulating two stories, but it's better this way anyway. So he wants an Oreo cookie, and the person says, "Oh, Vladika, that has milk products in it." I don't think Oreo cookies have food in it, but I don't think there's any food in it at all. But anyway, so he says, I asked for a cookie, not a glass of milk. And so he had that cookie. And then it might be the same one, but there was somebody who was really getting uppity about fasting and everything. And he says, you have to go into town and you have to buy 2 hamburgers, bring them back and eat them in front of me. This is during Great Lent. You have to eat hamburgers in front of me because I'm tired of you talking about this stuff. Because he was, fasting's not any good if you're bragging about it, if you're complaining about it.
That's right.
Fasting is good if you're struggling. And, if you're not able to fast, okay, well, then you tell your spiritual father, and your spiritual father says, what are you, stupid? It's not a big deal. Or he might say, you should try harder, or, et cetera, et cetera,
Well, that's fun. Yeah.
It's extremely personal. It's extremely personal.
That's right. Yep. And that's why we all need spiritual fathers too. I feel like, that was the first thing I wanted once I was baptized. I was like, I need a spiritual father. Like, I can't do this alone. Like, I need the guidance of an elder. Mm-hmm. It's so important to have that. How quickly do you think that people should get a spiritual father when they enter the faith?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think pretty quickly, I suppose. It really depends on, sometimes people, they have to have some of the gunk worked out of them, and they won't listen to a spiritual father, or they'll just become hyper fixated, mm-hmm. and not follow them in a healthy way. I have an awful lot of catechumens, and I'm trying to act as a spiritual father to them. That's all they got is me, so I'm trying to do my best for them. So really from the beginning, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. There's something I wanted to circle back around that we've talked about at the beginning was you mentioned that you go into the prisons and that you are serving liturgy and you baptize.
Well, I have. That's been some time ago, but
I think that it's awesome that you go into the prisons and do that, because I've wondered, what is that like? Because I have a friend of mine whose boyfriend is in prison, and I've learned a lot about how awful the conditions are. For me, they don't turn the lights off at night. In the summer, they'll put the heat on instead of the air conditioning. They barely feed them. Like when you mentioned, the vending machines on Saturdays when people are visiting, it's the most exciting thing to get, a hot pocket from the vending machine or whatever. And it's just a horrible environment for people, and nobody should have to be in that awful environment. And then I've also thought in my head, but how do they get the liturgy? How would you celebrate practice your faith when you're in prison? And hearing that you've gone into the prisons and that you've been there for these prisoners, I think it's just such an amazing thing that you offer. Can you share a little bit as we finish up our conversation, kind of how you got into doing the work in the prison?
Well, I haven't been in the prison for a while. They kind of made it very difficult for me because of their staffing. Okay. And I was going on Mondays, and I haven't gone for a year, I think. The pandemic, they shut me down. I was doing 10 prison visits a month. And then the pandemic came, and of course they shut us down. And I think really it was easier for them to say, oh, we have to be shut down because of this, manufactured virus.
Yeah. Say what it is.
Literally manufactured virus. And it's easier for us to say we can't do it because we ease our staffing and everything. So we were really shut down for about 2 years. And then I was able to start going again to a unit that I'd been going to. But I went on Monday, which means I could go down there Sunday night and stay. And then my commute would be easier because it's a 3.5 hours. Wow. And if I see them at 8 in the morning, I'm getting up at 3 at 3 is too late. I mean, I can hardly say my prayers by getting up at 3. So it was easier to me to go down to the hotel and then go to see them. And so that was easy. Monday was workable in my schedule, and really no other day was workable anymore. And then they said, oh, we don't have any staffing. We can only have 3 days a week. And they offered me, you can come Wednesday. It's like, right. Wednesday night at 7:00, going through rush hour traffic to get there. And then I'm coming home. I won't get to bed until 1:00, and I serve liturgy at 6 in the morning on Thursday. So, I mean, nah. So I stopped going. But Father David Kompanek, he's a real workhorse down in Houston, and he's going to a zillion prisons. He started after me. So I started because I met a guy, came to the church when we were in Dallas. He came with parishioners that knew him, and he wasn't Orthodox, but he just seemed troubled about something. So at the end of the liturgy, we had lunch and stuff, and I sat underneath a hackberry tree and literally talked to him for 5 hours. It turns out that he had committed a crime and that he was running, and that he didn't tell me about that, but he really told me about so many difficulties in his life. And he eventually gave himself up on Wednesday. And then so he goes to Fort Worth jail on a Wednesday. And I go start to visit him. This is a guy I didn't know from Adam, right? Start to visit him. He was really a mess psychologically, and just started talking to him. And I'd visit him like as often as I could in the Fort Worth jail. And then I would he was convicted eventually, and he went to the Hughes unit. Well, he went to one unit before that, but he eventually got to the Hughes unit, and I would visit him. And you talk by the phones, like on movies,
Mm-hmm.
That's horrible. That's horrific.
Through glass, right? Like you're right
through
there,
glass and everything else.
You can't even.
So I was asking, how can I get a contact visit with this? Oh, you can become a volunteer chaplain. So I went through the volunteer, training, which is only 1 day. Then I was able to have contact visits and as it were, services with him. So we would be in the chapel or we'd be in the library, and, I could have a prayer service, I could counsel him, etc. And eventually he wanted to become Orthodox. And so he was, and I catechized him. Turns out that there were two people in the prison that one was Orthodox and one was wanting to be Orthodox. They find out about me. They come to the baptism, and then I catechize the other one, and he's baptized. So now we have 3, then we have 4 or 5 or 6. And then they know people, of course, that are in like other units, and I contact them. And all of a sudden now I'm going to 3 units, and then eventually it expanded to 5 units. And in my heyday, I was going on Tuesday night and a Wednesday for one prison, then Tuesday night and Wednesday for 2 prisons, and then go down to Huntsville, stay overnight, and then 2 more prisons and come home on Thursday.
Wow.
And driving like 1,500 miles or more. I went to a couple other prisons here and there. It all developed because I sat under a hackberry tree and talked with this guy.
Wow. It's amazing. I mean, so much can come out of just one encounter with somebody or one circumstance in your life, like what happened with Daniel, and how Daniel's list came out, and all these people are being prayed for now. And you have this experience with this gentleman under the hackberry tree, and then you're going to the prison, and then all of a sudden you're visiting so many people, and other people, one person's baptized, and people see that baptism, then they want to be baptized. It's just, it really, the way that we live our life, and like God being like an ontological experience rather than just this knowledge thing. It's an experience that we have in life.
Absolutely. Everything matters. Everything matters. So if you live life in a spiritual way, and I'm not claiming that I live life very spiritually, more spiritually than I used to, for sure. That's true. You just see things, and then you react to them.
But speaking of seeing things, behind you have some art that's new from the last time we interviewed, and it's The Little Prince. It's from The Little Prince, and I got the book The Little Prince off your suggestion because you had mentioned it was important to Daniel, right? Or a book that reminds you of your son. Do you want to explain a little bit why you have The Little Prince behind you? And we too, on our art for the last episode.
Oh yeah. Daniel went to a French bookstore that was specializing in books of all languages when he was in France. And he got The Little Prince and read it in a cab on the way somewhere. Literally read the whole book, because you can read the book in less than an hour.
Yeah.
And it's very whimsical, but it's a morality play. It's a parable, and it's really beautiful. I count it among the finest of literature, and I would put it right up there with Moby Dick and everything, to Crime and Punishment, all the rest, because it just has a message, and it's a beautiful message. And he loved it. He wrote about it in his phone. We actually got the contents of his phone because the password he had used was always the one he used for his lunch password at school. So we had it from years ago. Marina remembered it, and we unlocked the phone, and we got all these messages. He had actually written a letter to us, the whole family, 2 years before, when he started college. And he'd written like, if I'm somehow incapacitated, I want to say these things to you, because obviously I won't be able to say them to you because I might be dead or I might be in a coma or something. And he literally said all these things to various people.
Wow.
So one of these days I'm going to make a tapestry out of that, and the whole thing is going to be written out. But so he really loved The Little Prince, and we just kind of connected with it immediately. There's the fox there, and his relationship with the fox is amazing. And there's things that he said, that the fox says, and that he says, it's just beautiful. And there's so much spiritual meaning in The Little Prince, so much. And so I read it every year, and it's just kind of our connection with Daniel. So now we have Little Prince coffee cups, and we have Little Prince comforter blankets, and I think we have the Little Prince in like 8 languages. People have given it to us, stuff like that. And of course now this tapestry that was given to me I don't remember when.
Oh, I love it. I love seeing that back behind you. It makes me smile so much hearing about Daniel and hearing you talk about him, and just so many amazing things about your son, and just hearing that he was, if he passed away when he was in his early 20s, right? So
he was 20 years old.
20 years old. So he would have written that letter if it was 2 years before that, when he was 18. I mean, that's a very mature, thinking to have that letter to say those things, at such a young age. Just a really beautiful soul. And through that loss, what has come out of it, like you were saying, how you have this ability to relate to others now, and how you pray even more now. You've been through that. Daniel's list is on, available for people that need.
Yeah, it's not updated. I update it occasionally, but it's gotten longer
on your website. And also, I want to mention before we end this conversation here is that your church is growing quite a bit, right, in McKinney, and you're trying to acquire. Have you acquired the new property already to build the new?
No, we had a new property we really thought about, and it turns out that we would have been running a deficit of at least $4,000 a month.
Okay.
That money we didn't have, that we wouldn't have been able to pay. So we just couldn't make it work out. We could have maybe done a few things, but it just didn't seem like it was God's plan for us. Yeah. And we've had a lot of things that have come through like that. The thing is, we've gotten up to about $400,000 in our building fund, mm-hmm. and that we probably need 10 times that to really build. And so you can obviously have a mortgage and stuff like that. So we're just in a situation. We have 2 pastors, 2 priests. So we have 2 liturgies, because we have one in our hall, which is just a house that is a big house that's near us. So it's like a 3-minute walk from the church. So we have one there, and we have one obviously in the temple. And in the temple, we could have 180 people, and that's really, really tight. I mean, I would say normally we have 160.
Wow.
And then we could have 80 people in the hall. So we could have usually somewhere 200, 220 total, something like that, every Sunday. And then we have quite a few people come for Vespers. We can fit them in the temple for Vespers. We about maybe 90 Vespers and Matins, the vigil, probably 90 all the way, all total for that day. And we're out of room,
Yeah.
And but we can pay all the bills and everything else, but like a lot of parishes, we just don't have the oomph to get to the next level right now. So,
well, everybody listening, if you have some, like we were saying, we're going to $500,000 to donate in, or $10 or whatever, you have $1, like please consider donating to.
Yeah, we have a fund, a GoFundMe thing, not GoFundMe, Give, Send, Go.
Okay.
And it's on the website, and
I'll put the link.
We also are
on the bio for everybody.
Yeah, you can put the link.
Yep.
And we also we pray for people that will donate really continually. We're trying to get them to say just their families, because when people give us 50 names, we have literally probably 3,000 names that we pray for now from all of the. This is our 3rd fundraising effort, and we have just this gargantuan number of people that we're praying for, like for the term of the parish. We're praying from every liturgy.
Yeah. We know how powerful
what we're hoping
is. We've been talking about that a lot in this episode.
What we're hoping is that there's people that say, wow, I really love your videos, or I love your church, or et cetera, et cetera. And I want to give you, either give you money, or people can't always give money, but I'll give a friendly loan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we already have one person who's guaranteed $30,000. So that will be given to us, and then we'll pay it back interest-free. I don't know what we'll decide on the term, 10 years or whatever. And then, but it would be amazing if we had like a $500,000 or $1 million friendly loan. Now, obviously that from people who can afford to lose the money, because we're promising we'll pay it back. We've always paid everything back, but there's a risk, right?
Right.
And then we would be able to get started, because the friendly loan is not anything that we would disclose to the bank. We would just have the money,
Right. Right. Well, everybody listen.
So that's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping. Somebody says, I'm hoping, I thought I should go try to evangelize somebody on the Dallas Stars. There must be somebody that's that's Orthodox Russian. There's a couple Russian players.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe go to that basketball, the Dallas Stars basketball.
Well, I don't know whether Luka Doncic, who's no longer with the Mavericks. He's from Slovenia. There's slight possibility he'd be Orthodox, more likely Roman Catholic. He didn't seem like the most pious individual of all time anyway. But can you imagine he becomes Orthodox and he tithes his income? You're getting like, you're getting like $3 million a year.
Yeah, that would be it. That would do it all.
That would be it. Rich people need to be saved too.
That's the change that somebody could make if you're given that kind of money. I mean, you can't build up your treasures here. Like, for what? Like, you can't take them with you. So we really should be giving.
I want to baptize some rich people.
Well, I wish I had. If I had it, I would give it to you. Maybe we'll. But everybody listening, a little bit here, a little bit there is really helpful. Father Seraphim is kind enough to come on the podcast and share his wisdom with us, God's wisdom, and he's praying, he's teaching us, and he's making us laugh. I'm still laughing about what you said about Oreos. I agree. I don't really think that they are food either. And there's a lot of symbolism also about the stamping on Oreos, which is tied to the occult. But it's been a pleasure chatting with you again, Father Seraphim. So much joy. I smile so much having these connections and these conversations with you. And your love for Daniel is so beautiful. It's so strong. And I think it's such an important message for people, because we're all going to go through loss. There's no way to, like you said, each one of us is going to die. Everybody's going to pass on. Like, that's inevitable. And so being able to look at that and not just like a human loss, but see it as like the spiritual growth that comes out of that, it's really a powerful shift, and it's important message to share. So thank you for coming on here and talking about that with us.
I want to say something about that real quickly, because yes, I adapted to the death of my son in a certain way, and there's been many positives, and that doesn't mean that anybody who has more trouble with things has to say, oh, I'm terrible. You need to talk to people that know what they're doing. Somebody like me who's gone through grief. I'm not going to expect people to go through grief the same way I did.
Right.
And I don't want people to feel like failures. Just like your spiritual father says, I bless you. You can have the olive oil, right? Because he didn't want you to feel like a failure, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's very important. And the untold story is the 7, almost 8 years now, because it's 8 years in June, of life that I've gone through after Daniel's death. There's been ups and downs, Mm-hmm. There's been, feeling very sad. There's all that stuff, but there's been an upward trajectory that I would say has never stopped. But that's because I had spirituality before Daniel died.
Right.
If I didn't have it, then I would have been really lost. So, and the people that don't have spirituality and somebody dies, they have to come to loving spiritual fathers like yours, who are going to get them through and not try to make them fulfill every single rule, but more just, be loved. Right. I just recently, I have a little rant. I won't mention the priest, but it's a well-known internet priest. And he warned somebody against me. He says, don't go to Rokor. Don't go to Rokor because they're too strict. And it's like, he has no idea what he's talking about. Your monastery, Holy Archangels, and certainly St. Anthony's is known as being strict.
Yeah, yeah.
And what are they doing? They're making people eat eggs with cream in their coffee, right? I mean, because the strictness is something that if you can attain it, yes. But if someone loves you, they're not going to force you to do things. And there's not strictness. Whatever I say in public to people, a person who knows me, I'm going to change it when I talk to them privately.
Right.
And it's kind of like that. I tell people to come to vigil, right? And people say, "Can I have a blessing not to be a vigil today? I have to do this." I say, "God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you." I'm just a rubber stamp machine for blessings. And because and some people have figured it out, right? They're asking me every Saturday, "I can't come to vigil." But most people are not taking advantage of it. The idea of being super strict is just stupid.
Yeah.
We're not super strict. We're not super strict. Fasting is not super strict. Doing prostrations is not super strict. Reading the Psalter is not super strict. It's not. It's the way of life. Now, if I read a Kathisma at least a day, and I read other things as well. And but let's say you can't. Okay, can you read one psalm? All right, you're on the road, right?
Right.
But that's under the counsel of a spiritual father. People shouldn't. This super strictness is just so stupid.
Yeah.
I hear people calling me or calling ROCOR super strict. I have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're talking about.
When I left my first church, I became a catechumen at was Antiochian, and they would not, I've mentioned last time, they would not baptize me with chrismation, which I was like, I want to be baptized because there's one baptism. I don't believe that the grace of, the divine grace is found outside the church. That the grace is in the sacraments in the church. My Protestant baptism was empty of that. And so I ended up leaving that church. And for a couple months, as I was still looking for where I was going to end up, I went to a ROCOR church, but I told someone from the Antiochian church that I left that I was going to go to a ROCOR church, and she warned me. Exactly what you're saying. I have to warn you, they're really strict and they're kind of fanatical and all this. And then I went to the ROCOR church and I loved it. Actually, they would baptize me. I was like, if that's the strictness they're talking about, then this is a strictness I want, because I believe we should be baptizing everyone. And I think what I love about Orthodoxy is that it has stayed the same. Like, I don't want a Protestant church with a rock band. Is that not strict, where they have the rock band, or where they're not baptizing people? Or like you've got pews and everybody's sitting. I mean, and maybe I do sound a little, fanatical sometimes, but I want to keep things the way it's always been. And that's why I think these obediences they help adhere to that tradition. And that's the tradition that the church fathers use and the saints use to interpret the scripture, which keeps it the same as it's always been.
Well, you gave that example. I think that people are forcing people not to be baptized are really strict.
Ooh, wow.
They're really strict about, because they're giving into the modernism. There's nuance to this. It's not heretical to chrismate somebody. It is heretical to chrismate somebody because you say you're not allowed to baptize them.
Right.
Because then you're assuming there's grace outside of the church.
Right.
And my position, my super strict position, is to baptize everybody.
Yep.
For sure.
That's very good. No, I agree with you. I just put out a 2-part series with Father Peter Heers where we talked all about baptism and what the church father says, what the tradition says, what the canons say. We did an episode on economia because economia, which is the exception to the rule, is unfortunately often they're making the exception the rule. And we, I believe that everyone, I feel so strongly, and I'm trying not to get worked up about it, that every convert should be baptized. If you were not baptized in the church, you have not been baptized. There is no rebaptism. You haven't been baptized. If you were born Orthodox and you were baptized as a baby, then you wouldn't be baptized again. But if you had a Protestant ceremony, ritual, I don't even know what to call it, the TED Talk on stage dunking like I had, they call it a baptism, but it's not the Nicene Creed's one baptism that has the grace of God that comes through the priest
Well,
in the church.
you're preaching to the choir, but certainly chrismation is possible, and many people have been chrismated. Many people have been incorrectly baptized. There are churches now that are only pouring.
Yeah.
And that's terrible,
Yep.
because then it looks like a Roman Catholic baptism, and really they're starting to believe just like the Roman Catholics. And that's a terrible thing. So there's a progression, a slide into heresy that is going to change things a lot. And eventually I think there'll be a schism, and eventually they won't just, do whatever weird stuff they do in closed rooms, but they're going to do, the Pope and the Patriarch are going to celebrate liturgy, and then there's something clear cut. But until then, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to baptize people, and that's all there is to it. And even if people come to me and with my bishop's blessing, if they've really been mistreated, I've chrismated people, and I know some people get really mad about that. Well, what about mistreating people and not allowing them baptism?
Yep.
Yep. That's it's a reaction to their problem. Yep. It's not my. So I know a lot of people could really get angry about that. Okay, fine. But we have to follow. I know the Mount Athos way. I'm really comfortable with Mount Athos monasticism, and they've been doing it right for a long time. Yep. There are inroads in Mount Athos that are taking away that, but still, there's the real deal there. And by the way, do you know that you must have did you do your stuff with Father Peter before or after he was accepted into the Romanian
we
church?
Interviewed just before, but I put the episode out last week, and I added into it that he's been accepted into the Romanian church.
Because he's been accepted.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, he was really exiled for completely fallacious reasons.
Yeah.
He's a good friend. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm always going to stand and have his back. Good. And he and I have very similar points of view, not identical, because we're not robots.
None of us like see things absolutely the same. Some of us, like I said, I have to eat the egg when our spiritual father says that, and some of us don't. But I love Father Peter so much, and I was honored to get to talk to him about baptism. And
I'll have to listen to that one. I generally don't listen to podcasts too much, but maybe I'll do that on the.
Just put it out. Honestly, just last week, but it hasn't even been out a week yet, and. We talked about the reception of the Heterodox, the book that Uncut Mountain Press put out, and we just looked at what do the church fathers say? What does Canon 40? What does Saint Basil say in Canon 47? Let's talk about Canon 95 that people try to use, to say, oh, you don't need to be baptized because look at these heresies from 2,000 years ago and that type of thing. And we really went into detail and discussed all this because I get lots of messages from people through my social media from sharing my story that are catechumens, and they're being told the same thing, that they can't be baptized. Or even worse, I have people I've talked to that have been Orthodox 20, 30 years, and they were just chrismated, and they regret it to this day. And it's not that someone's not Orthodox if they're just chrismated. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just, I just really believe, like, from my experience, after I was baptized Orthodox, that was the most massive change I've ever felt in my entire life. And I didn't feel that after.
I agree with you. Even people that were chrismated, there's people that have transformations when they were baptized. Yep. Because they had been mistreated. That's just it's unfortunate that this occurs, but we have to have a sense of pastoral work. I would say that the major reason why there should only be baptism, it's not so much a theological reason, because the books allow for chrismation. Actually, the books allow for chrismation, strictly speaking, when the form of baptism has been done in the name of the Holy Trinity. Nobody does it. Nobody. The only people that would do the form of baptism as the books require is the Copts, who would baptize in the name of the Trinity with 3 immersions. Nobody else does it. Right. The Roman Catholics do a little pouring from a little seashell or something. Right. The Baptists will do 1 immersion. Some people do it in the name of Christ. Some people literally do in the name of the Creator, Sanctifier, Redeemer, or they even use feminist language.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Anglicans, you have no idea what they're going to do. No idea. In fact, I know people who were in the Episcopal Church that said that they saw baptisms where a person was baptized in the name of Creator, Sanctifier, Redeemer, or even feminist language, but the document said baptized in the name of the Holy Trinity. So it was a lie,
Wow.
right? So, but the reason why I think baptism has to be done universally is a pastoral reason. And we don't have very many pastors anymore. People are very broken. People are coming from such crazy beliefs, from strange religions, and from strange, whether they're Christian or not. It's so much that's such a cacophony, and they have so much that's wrong with their lives in terms of how they were brought up, and sexual abuse, and promiscuity, and sexual depravity, and all this stuff. And so people need healing,
Yeah.
and they need to have a place where it's like, this is the church, and out there is not the church.
Yep.
And they don't have that.
Yep.
And they are being told, we are chrismated in you because you're already baptized. Well, if I'm already baptized, why have I had such a weird life for the last 20 years? I mean, why, if I've been a Christian all my life, why haven't I had grace? What, clearly, I've done this, I've done that. It doesn't make any sense to them.
Yeah.
So baptism is a pastoral thing. And now I know of people that have reported to me that in one jurisdiction, they have people calling, like the priest, or even calling, let's say, the starosta, the warden, and saying, has the priest done any baptisms of people that like a Roman? Has he baptized any Roman Catholics? He would get suspended for that. So they're literally ordering their priests what to do, and the priests have some of them have no recourse, and they're literally watching them. Literally, I've heard reports of that. They're literally watching them. My bishop doesn't do that to me. My bishop trusts me. My bishop knows me. Now, I've done things, and I've gotten in trouble with him but he's said, Father Seraphim, don't do that, or Father Seraphim, you shouldn't have done that, or Father Seraphim, you need to apologize.
Right.
You know, but he's not like literally watching over me like a hawk.
Right.
You know, and they're literally forcing their priests to do this. And so many of the priests, many of the priests have only been chrismated themselves.
Yeah.
So there's sort of a vanity thing,
Yep.
like, you know,
Yep.
and everything. It's like, if you only been chrismated yourself, oh, all right. I know one priest that happened to him, and he just said, I'm done. I'm going to go get baptized. And he did. And that was it. I mean, I thought, okay,
Yeah.
you know, and that doesn't negate all the stuff he did before.
Right.
It just doesn't say the people he married are not married, the people he baptized are not baptized, but you should correct a wrong.
Right.
So it'd be better not to have the wrong. People are so broken psychologically, spiritually, that baptism is this font of illumination for them. I'm not saying a person is not Orthodox if they're chrismated, but they're not fed, they're not ministered to, because they're literally told, oh, you already were Orthodox. Really, that's the message.
Right.
All right.
Right.
I mean, they don't say that, but if you're already, if your baptism was effectual, then yeah, you're effectual with a baptism where people didn't have a priest, didn't have a bishop, didn't have the Eucharist. Their baptism was, the baptism of the Baptist is only a statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is only symbolic.
Yep.
And yet that's considered valid. It's cruel and unusual treatment to Orthodox Christians, and it's because of ecumenism.
Yep.
It's because of the old boy network, and it's because of sort of a mafioso mentality. And thank God that right now in our church, in the Roshan Church abroad, that we don't have a mafioso mentality, and may it always be that there's always somebody who pharaohs who know Joseph. And if it ever occurs that it isn't, well, I guess I'll have a tough time. But right now we're being protected by God's grace.
Yeah. I mean, you can see the difference in some. I mean, I feel like you can see the difference in someone after they're baptized. I became a godparent actually last Saturday, and I saw the woman who I'm now. She's my goddaughter before and after, and she's just a glow that you can see coming off of somebody, and it's just even Elder Ephraim of Arizona said in the book that's coming out about him, about his life, he he had the gift. God gave him that gift to be able to see if someone had been baptized or not. There's a story, I don't know if you've heard of the person that was baptized in New Mexico in the 80s, I think, and they took pictures of the baptism on film, and they're literally glowing. The pictures of the woman is glowing in the picture on film. Have you heard of this story?
I haven't heard of this, but I believe it.
Yeah, I mean,
because I've seen other pictures like it.
You can look the pictures up on the internet. I mean, she's literally glowing, and there's a child that's looking up at her, and you can see that she's glowing. And I can't remember what other saint it was recent, maybe that would, when he would commune people, he could tell like if somebody had been baptized or not. Like, you're illumined, you're changed. And I know this is just my personal experience, but I've talked before. I came out of the occult. I was working as a psychic medium. I was taking psychedelics. I was mind melding with demons and stuff, horrible things before I became a Christian. And those demons were in my head, and they were trying to kill me. Seriously, in my next book, Becoming Human, I'll be talking about this, especially when I was a catechumen and when I was fighting for this baptism. I was like, I need prayers of exorcism done. I need this baptism. I need this removed.
Wait a minute. In the Antiochian church, they wouldn't do prayers of exorcism?
They didn't do prayers of exorcism over me when I became a catechumen.
And
then I went to the priest, and I was
begging. Abusive.
I went to the priest, and I was begging. I was literally had voices in my head June 2024 when I was a brand new catechumen. These voices trying to get me to kill myself. And I was like, I need exorcism. And he wouldn't do prayers of exorcism. He said he didn't want to beat the drum. He didn't want to bring the demons around. He sent me home with holy water. And it wasn't until I went to the Rocor church that winter and I saw some people become catechumens. And it was like a 30-minute ceremony. But my church, where I became a catechumen, it was like 30 seconds, a minute. And there was no prayers of exorcism. So I asked the priest at the Rocor church to do the prayers of exorcism over me, and he did, and that helped. But then when I was baptized, summer 2025, they did the prayers of exorcism. I have it on my, I've posted it. It's in the video I just put out. And then I was baptized, and I will tell you, those voices in my head, those demons did not go away until I was baptized.
Well, that's a very powerful testimony, and I'm sure there are thousands like it. And I don't know why the so many Orthodox bishops and priests are so stupid, and they don't listen. I don't think they're thinking spiritually. I really don't. And people can say, "Oh, Father Seraphim's being judgmental." I'm sorry. I'm a pastor. I'm a priest. I see people suffering, and I can't imagine, seeing somebody thirsty and not giving them water. I just can't imagine it. And it's cruel. It's cruel. If you had just been chrismated, you'd be a neurotic, half psychotic person in that church, and you might be dead. Yeah. And they'd go, they'd say she had so many problems. Well, no, she had demons, and she was struggling to be free of those demons, and you didn't help her. Yep. That kind of stuff makes me mad. That's why people like Father Peter. That's why like Father Peter and myself, because some people consider me just Father Peter's acolyte or something. That's why people say such terrible things about them, and I get it here in the town in town that that I'm sorry. I don't listen to this stupid stuff. I'm going to baptize people because people are very much afflicted. Yes. Demons are everywhere. Yes. I mean, I have seen demon possession. I've had demons talk to me. Yep. I'm telling you, as you well know, it's the real thing. It is. Yeah. And we must do everything in our power to help people. Yes. Now, baptism is not absolutely, in your case, baptism removed the demons. I had an occurrence where, and people might be scandalized. The baptism did not remove demons, but these were quiet demons that became more manifest later. And, it's not one size fits all, Right. I mean, sometimes your spiritual father is going to say, you got to eat this egg. Right. Other times the spiritual father is going to throw the egg at your face. I mean, it's not one size fits all. Yeah. But it is, in my opinion now, I'll contradict myself, it is one size fits all. If a person's capable of being baptized, yes. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I baptize people on their bed dying of cancer, having morphine pumped into their veins. So I baptized her by pouring. Yep.
Economia. That was an economia.
Economia, right? But that's because of that need,
Yep.
not because of some predilection, like there's already been a baptism.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. And, and I was baptized on St. Mary Magdalene's feast day, which was, there's no coincidences. She had the 7 demons, right? And
Yeah, she did.
so that's why I fought for that baptism. I hope all the demons are gone. Like you said, that's scary to think that there could be something still hiding or come out later, but this is, I'll deal with that when that happens. But I just know that, and another thing too, is I was addicted to smoking weed, and even before my baptism, and I came out, and I just started kind of talking about this publicly. I haven't smoked weed since my baptism. I lost the desire, and I feel cautious saying that because it's not my strength. It's all glory to God from that. But that was something that you see people suffering with addiction, and it's like they go off to rehab and it doesn't quite help, or they fall back into it. It's like baptism. You need a baptism to help you on that journey of healing on that. It's just unbelievable, the grace that comes out of that. So,
well,
yeah,
may it be that more people find it.
I feel so passionate about this issue, and I try to not get too worked up about it. So forgive me. I just really, it's part of my story.
I get pretty worked up too. Actually, I've been accused of saying disobey your bishop, and that's just a stupid thing.
The way it's been explained to me, if you have one bishop right now that's saying don't baptize for this or this reason, are you going to disobey that one bishop? If you disobey that one bishop, you're being obedient to all the lineage of bishops that have come for hundreds of years that said that we should baptize. So is it better to be disobedient to the one bishop that's asking you to do something that it's not correct, it's not what the church fathers teach, and then you're being obedient to the 20 other bishops that came in succession before? So I mean, I don't know, that was described to me that way.
Yeah, if a person if a person in DFW wants to be baptized and their priest won't do it, if you've been catechized and I can be sure that you're ready to go, I'll baptize you.
Yeah.
I mean, because I just don't. That's not correct.
No.
To force people.
No, you're right.
We don't force people in Christianity.
It's more. What were they saying, that you're too strict or whatever? It's more strict or fanatical to not baptize someone than to allow them what they desire and want in their heart. And that
I completely agree with you. And but unfortunately, there's that great movement. It's all because of ecumenism, lack of spirituality, et cetera, et cetera. And people are being persecuted. It's going to increase. Yep. And that's just all there is to it. So we better get with it. Yeah,
I know it's not the popular thing to say all this, but I'm here to share the truth, and I care about the salvation and healing of everyone's souls. And so this is the truth. Yep. Well, we weren't planning on talking about baptism, but I'm glad that got brought up.
I was planning to go on no rants whatsoever, but I failed miserably.
I know, we did so good. I was trying to end the conversation, say goodbye, talk about the Little Prince, and then all of a sudden baptism got brought up, and you and I both got real serious. So, well, Father Seraphim, thank you again for coming on Let's Be Friends. As always, it was a joy. Find Father Seraphim. He is online at Orthodox Net. This is his YouTube channel, his social media as well on Instagram. I'll have the links here. And he is at St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in McKinney, Texas. And you could, if you have the extra funds to make a donation, that would be very blessed and very helpful. And thank you, Father Seraphim, for coming on the show.
You're welcome. God bless.